Welcome to episode 9, Future of Beauty Unfiltered podcast. Today, I have been very excited about having this conversation. We have the amazing Sarah Carolides with us. Hello.
Hello, Hannah. Lovely to be here.
Yes, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. I am your host, Hannah Cook, Head of Growth and Innovation here at the Pull Agency. Sarah has actually very generously given us her time today to join us. We actually saw her speaking at an event not that long ago, and we were just in such awe about everything that you've been through and talking about all things nutrition that we just had to talk to you. So I'm going to embarrass you now and do a little bit of a bio on the things you've achieved. So obviously this week, we're going to be talking to the UK's top functional medicine and nutritionalist specialist with over 20 years of experience. 20 years plus, apparently, according to your bio, of helping and supporting people with nutrition and health problems, changing countless lifestyles across the UK and worldwide. That must be a very rewarding journey.
It really is. Honestly, I fall in love with all my clients. They're just what people go through. And then when you get to help them and see the changes that they can start to make themselves, it's so powerful. I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, you've worked with quite a few leading companies as well across the UK when it comes to their workplace wellness program. So I'd love to chat about that a bit. And obviously your approach, working with doctors and consultants in particular, you know, your secret weapon is that whole body approach. I know we were talking about that earlier downstairs, so I'm keen to talk about that more around kind of embracing everything from food to hydration, sleep to exercise, stress, and even kind of organisation with your own life. Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit anal OCD, so I'm totally with you on that one. But on top of all that, you are also Zooki's head of nutrition.
Yes.
So you lead the conversation on key health conditions such as menopause in the workplace and obviously the importance of vitamin D, especially in the wintertime.
Yep.
That's amazing. I mean, I could go on. You've got an undergraduate, postgraduate science degrees from the University of Cambridge, you clever cookie. And obviously diplomas with distinction from the Institute of Optimum Nutrition, Centre for Integrative Sports Nutrition. Oh, the list goes on. What an amazing background. So thank you so much for coming again today. I'm going to jump straight in with a question here. You are very passionate about nutrition. You know, when we first started talking, we went around so many things. And today, I know we're really keen to kind of talk about particularly the link between gut and mental health. I need another sip of this coffee now. What is it that makes you so passionate about nutrition and how it impacts both physical and mental well-being? Like, how did you actually even get into this in the first place?
Well, everybody in my field, complementary medicine, has gone through the same journey where we've had something happen to our own health. We have not been able to resolve it with the Western medicine, with the tools that we've got through the GPs and what's out there. We've done something ourselves. We've changed nutrition, lifestyle. Something's happened, and that's how we've healed it. And I'm exactly the same. And for me, that happened actually just after university. I had quite a stressful last year at university where I realised I hadn't done any work and I needed to pull my socks up and actually get going. Finished that and then pretty much had a collapse. Now, I come from a long line of medics. My parents were both doctors. So I had access to all sorts of specialists and this and that, and they took me to see all sorts of people. Nobody could help. Eventually, I read an article in a magazine about somebody who'd gone to a nutritionist. I went to see that lady. And it was a light bulb moment because it was the first time that I had realized what you eat actually affects how you are. I mean, my mother, you know, worked unbelievably hard, never got home before 7:30 at night. There'd be a piece of meat, she'd take out a tin, a packet, a frozen veg. That was dinner every day. I think breakfast was Pop-Tarts, lunch was a sandwich. You know,
Charles' perfect diet right
exactly.
there.
I was very happy with that, but it was not a good diet. Going to university, I hadn't got a clue how to cook. I think I lived off toast and pizza, as most students do.
Noodles.
Exactly. Didn't have pot noodles in those days, but wish I had. I might have got a vegetable that way. But anyway, it was sort of a light bulb moment when I realized that actually what you eat fuels your cells, fuels your physical and mental health. And it cured me at the time. And that was sort of that then stayed in the background. I went into banking for a while. I was traveling all over the place. And then when eventually I got married and had children, I thought, you know what, this is what I'm really interested in. And my background was biology and genetics. So I had the science there. I knew how it worked. I brought it all together, retrained as a nutritionist. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. And that's just amazing. I mean, So nutrition is such a broad term for what it actually is. And I think, that kind of famous saying of you are what you eat, it very much resonates, but people kind of take it, I think, sometimes with a pinch of salt. And I think unless you've lived it and been in that position where you've effectively hit burnout, like you kind of said, I assume that's kind of what you went through. And then how do you pick yourself back up and build yourself back up? Within that category, there are so many areas that you could help people. Do you find there's like a common area that people always come to you with?
Yes, I think the biggest issues are I'm exhausted all the time.
Really?
Fatigue is a big, big thing. I'm just tired all the time. And then the second thing is my stomach's not right. And those are actually the biggest reasons that people go to the doctors. And one of the things, I've always worked with doctors. I don't like the separation. I don't like the sort of, I can't go to a doctor. I'm never going to have an antibiotic. I'm never going to do any medicine at all. The separation between Western medicine and complementary medicine. I think the way forward is to actually bring it all
make
together.
them work together.
Yes, so I've been lucky enough to work with very forward-thinking doctors who, when people go to them, they say, right.
What's your diet?
Yeah, exactly. And they say, okay, I'm going to put you on a medicine for now, but I also want you to see Sarah because I want you to take you off that medicine in 3 or 6 months' time because you've done the work underneath and you've got yourself to a point where you don't need that drug anymore. And that's where it's really powerful. So I think the biggest things that people come for are definitely fatigue and the gut. And that we can certainly work on with nutrition.
And I think the gut, so, we've worked with lots of different brands over the years. Simprove, I know I've mentioned to you before, and I'm a big advocate of gut health. This is how we actually kind of got all excited and talking in the first place. 80% of your hormones, I think, if I read it correctly or around that, I'm sure you can correct me, kind of come from this,
Some of the hormones, not all of them.
Yes.
But serotonin, which is the happy hormone, some of them are certainly made in the gut, yes.
And I think people don't realise, actually, we've all done it. You have a heavy night out, you spend the whole day the next day eating rubbish, and you wonder why it takes you so much longer to bounce back. I come in from a night out and I drink my green shot and have my vitamins and wake up and have a salad because that's, but it's the education for people around understanding how what you eat and how you fuel your body and the impact it's going to have on your mental health. There's not a lot out there. I mean, we're starting to definitely talk about it more. And I think one of the things you touched on a minute ago is that you've been really fortunate to work with forward-thinking doctors.
Yes.
Not all doctors do actually say, what do you eat? Do you sleep? How much water do you drink?
They really don't. I think in the whole 5-6 years of medical training, there's something like 7 hours of education on nutrition. That's it. It's actually horrifying. It's basically Western medicine what we've got to. I mean, having said that I want to work with it, a lot of Western medicine is there a drug to get rid of the symptoms? So if you came to me with a headache, if you go to the doctor with a headache, the doctor's going to say, okay, take a paracetamol, take an ibuprofen if he thinks there's any inflammation there or something. Let's get rid of the symptom. I'm going to say...
What's the cause?
What's the cause? Where's that headache from? Have you eaten a food that you're sensitive to? Are you drinking enough water? Are you getting enough sleep? Etc. All that kind of simple stuff that gets to the root of it, whereas a lot of Western medicine will use a drug to just contain the symptom. And if there isn't a drug, they might just cut it out. That's the other problem that we get to. So, yeah, that's the bad side. That's the negative side of Western medicine, that we rely on drugs and cutting things out without going to the cause. And again, it is just education.
I think it's very interesting, though. We've spoke about this a lot. I spoke about this with Joseph Harwood, who was actually our first guest on our podcast, and it was in the context of makeup, actually, and the difference between particularly the UK and let's say outside of the Western world. So let's take America and the UK out of the scenario and kind of talk about other areas. They very much, when it comes to skincare, even France, when we were talking about this with Cordaly on one of our podcasts, they look at the cause, as you've just said. Whereas here, even with makeup, you get bad skin. Before lockdown, you just covered it.
Yes.
You didn't sit there and say, why have I got bad skin? I'm going to get to the bottom of it. You just said, that's fine, more makeup.
Yes.
And you just kind of covered. And it's just a really interesting mindset. I do think it's shifting slowly. I think COVID, I talk about this on every episode and I say I'm not going to, but it was such a big pivotal point.
Yes.
Gosh, can't talk today, can I? In people's mindsets of going, I need to look
after myself.
Myself and the cause rather than fixing the symptom, which is obviously what you said. So there's definitely a bit of a learning curve that even GPs need to
On
go
both
through.
sides, that's right. Yeah.
To go, hold on a minute, our
Yes.
customers, our patients are thinking differently.
Yes.
Maybe we need to think a little bit differently too.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I work with a lovely dermatologist, Professor Al-Niami, who is top of his game in terms of lasers and special treatments. And one of the things he deals with a lot is rosacea. We had so many discussions over lockdown and whatever. He now sends everyone to me because he knows that rosacea is very often linked to a problem in the gut, something called H. pylori or leaky gut, things like that. When we work together, so he will sort of get the lasers out and deal with the topical stuff, but he'll send the people to me. I deal with the gut. I know we're getting away from mental health here, but
No, it's fine.
and it works, it solves the problem so much faster. The rosacea goes, people understand what they can do, and it's not going to come back. So he's great, and he's exactly at that point where he's thought, hang on a minute, there is more. I know what I can do with the machines and the lasers and the treatments and whatever. I've got all that. But actually, there is this other side to it that if we work together, it's so much more powerful.
So why does rosacea, why is gut connected to that? Because obviously rosacea is one thing, but eczema is another. Eczema,
Yes.
there's so many
Yes.
kids now that are actually not only having more eczema than they did before, but it's worse.
Yes.
Like, it's horrendous, these poor little kids sometimes. And a lot of the time people go back to, do they have allergies? What's their diet like? And gut health. What's gut got to do with rosacea?
Well, the skin is the largest organ of detoxification in the body. If you think about it, it's an area where we can get rid of things. Now, if your gut is compromised, if the lining of the gut is not particularly strong, or you haven't got the sort of mucus layer that keeps everything out, it's a bit like a mosquito net, the gut lining. I always say it's a bit like a mosquito net. And if you've got something called leaky gut, which is a term we hear thrown around a lot, it means the holes in the mosquito net have got too large for whatever reason. Things can start getting through. They get into the bloodstream, they cause reactions, and one of the areas they can get out is through the skin. So this can be at the root of a lot of problems like eczema, acne, rosacea, all of them. There is always a link with the gut. With children with eczema, it's often genetic. However, we have seen amazing results. We have a fantastic case study that we're about to release where we had a little toddler, gorgeous little boy called Cooper, who was taking omega-3, the fish oil product that we have. And it was actually completely by chance. His mother read omega-3s were good for children. His eczema, which was awful, cleared up in a couple of weeks. And she didn't really put two and two together. But then they went on holiday and she forgot to take it with her.
And it went back
and his
again.
eczema came back again. So the fish oils, that's kind of working on the integrity of the skin and the gut membranes itself. So you've got your genetic problem, but then you've also got the integrity of the skin. And this is where all the nutrients can help. So things like fish oil, finding out if you've got a parasite or bacteria like the Helicobacter pylori that I was speaking about before that often affects rosacea. There are so many links with the gut.
Yeah.
But that's, if things are getting through the gut that shouldn't, they will often come out through the skin.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think we've just spoke about the gut quite a bit, so you've transitioned me really nicely onto my next question, actually, while you have a little sip of your coffee. There's a lot of physical side effects. I love that analogy of saying it's a mosquito net. I really do. That makes so much sense. Because even I struggle with my gut. I always have. I actually ignored it for years. I kind of just lived with it. Like we were saying about with women, you just kind of get on with it.
Yep.
And it's really now in the last couple of years, I've really started kind of taking the time to understand it better. But one of the things I noticed, I don't eat gluten anymore. I have an allergy.
Yeah.
Not celiac, thank goodness.
No,
but
a sensitivity.
very much got tested to it. But in the time, obviously, when you get tested for celiac, you have to eat it.
Yes. Oh, God.
And my mental health really suffered because of it, massively, to the point where it's terrified me to kind of eat it again, and because of that process and the physical reaction. So a lot of people, there is a powerful connection between gut and mental health.
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit more about that? Like, what actually is the connection? Why does it make a difference? Because it makes no sense, right? For my little baby brain, I go, why is what's in my tummy going to make me feel bad?
Yeah, well, you've just mentioned your baby brain. You've got a second brain in your gut. You have as many neurons in your gut as the brain of a small cat.
No way.
Where there actually is a second brain. There are all these neurons, nerve cells down there, and they are communicating with the brain in your head. So, the butterflies in your stomach, we talk about that feeling in my gut, it just wasn't right, or whatever, that gut feeling. You do have nerve cells in the gut. So there's three main reasons why the gut affects mental health. One is actually what we eat, whether we have any deficiencies or even excesses. I'm talking about alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, bad foods, processed
Chemicals,
foods, chemicals, etc. So that could be excesses. But deficiencies of any nutrients, especially the B vitamins, can really affect mental health. So that's the first thing, actually what you're eating, whether you're getting enough or too much. The second thing is the lining of the gut that we just spoke about, the mosquito net. And once that's compromised, which is quite easy if you're eating a poor diet, if you're stressed, too much alcohol, antibiotics, blah, 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 daily life really, things then start to get through that. So then food sensitivities. You just talked about gluten. That's a really interesting one. No human being has the ability to digest gluten. We don't produce the enzymes that can metabolize and digest gluten. There's no such thing as sort of, human-produced glutenases or whatever. However, if your gut is functioning really, really well, then you might be able to tolerate it and pass it through the system and excrete it out the other end. If you've got problems with your gut, then gluten is going to be one of the first things that gets through that mosquito net and can set off problems. So like you said, it's not an allergy. There's no sort of genetic allergy underneath there. But the fact is, when your gut's compromised, gluten's going to be one of the first things that sets it off. Yeah,
well, it was interesting because actually I was shocked because I was waiting to see that I was lactose intolerant because I struggled with dairy.
Yes.
And actually, as soon as I cut the gluten side out and started effectively repairing that gut as best I could, I can now tolerate dairy, whereas I couldn't before.
There you go. It was your gut lining. It wasn't any genetic intolerance, anything under there. This is when people do food sensitivity intolerance tests, I always say, leave that. We do that later because what I want to do is heal the gut first. And if you'd taken a food intolerance test at that point, you'd have probably lit it up like a Christmas tree because everything would have come out because it was just getting through the lining, getting into the bloodstream and causing those antibodies to react. But actually, once you heal the gut, it'll come down to any real intolerances.
So back to, sorry, I slightly tangented there, talking about lactose. So how does it then impact, obviously?
So the second one is things getting through into the bloodstream. And then the third reason is the colony of trillions and trillions of microorganisms that live in our gut called the microbiome. So I don't know if you're nodding away. You've read a bit about, they're getting much more into the news. The research is phenomenal. I mean, 90% of the research on the microbiome has been done in the last 10 years. There are now entire institutes devoted to it. So this is the trillions of bacteria, fungi, phytoorganisms, all sorts of things. Flora and fauna that live inside us. There are some biologists who think that bacteria are the real deal and we're just the host. It's actually them that are living and evolving and we're just the box. We're just the box, exactly, to keep them going. Anyway, so they're all in there. And it should be a commensal arrangement, which means that they work for us. So you mentioned manufacturing hormones. They help produce the serotonin, the happy hormone. They digest fiber. They absolutely love fiber. They use it to produce short-chain fatty acids that then feeds more bacteria. They help manufacture vitamin K, the blood clotting hormone. They help manufacture all the B vitamins. They are incredibly important to our health and well-being. They also talk. They chatter the entire time. And that communication goes up through those neurons we spoke about a moment ago, through the vagus nerve up to the brain. When they're happy, the brain knows it, that everything's going well, fine, we can carry on. If they're unhappy, that's what's going to cause the problems in the brain. So when we go, coming back to anxiety and depression, three things going on. One, you could be deficient. One of the biggest ones is vitamin D that we mentioned earlier. The minute people are deficient in vitamin D, they start coming down. You start feeling worse. That's a big reason behind SAD, seasonal affective disorder. People are low in vitamin D. We're not supposed to be in caves all winter. Well,
no,
I
remember a doctor saying actually every single person that you know, particularly in this country, because of between October and March,
absolutely
high dose of vitamin D daily. Get outside, even if it doesn't look like it's sunny. Get outside.
Yeah, and it doesn't even need to be. Yeah, you say get outside. We haven't really got the sunlight at this latitude you'd have to be naked running around for 24.
I don't think they'd like that in a local park.
I don't know. Guildford's quite forward thinking, isn't it? I don't know. Yes. So, everyone, clocks going back to clocks going forward, you have to take a supplement. And it doesn't need to be really high strength. I would say about 4,000 IU with vitamin K. Must have vitamin K, otherwise it doesn't get absorbed properly into the bones and everywhere we need it. There's a load of vitamin D receptors in the hypothalamus They know that now. They know how important vitamin D is to the brain. So number one, get your vitamin D. And then number two, you've got to keep your bacteria happy. And if they're not happy, again, it's going to affect your mental health. And then back to those sensitivities and things, there is something called, allergic something or other. It's a syndrome where the first sign of an allergy or food sensitivity will always be anxiety and depression. Always affects the brain first.
Wow. It's everyone's so different, right? And I think this phrase IBS gets thrown around by consumers actually, more than anything. You just kind of put it in a box, don't you? And it's so broad. And I think sometimes you do very much just get on with it. I think women in particular, from, again, the conversations I've had, typically struggle more. I don't know if you found that women are maybe more sensitive, because obviously our hormones are a little bit more spiky.
I don't know if they're more sensitive, but I think we definitely put up with more. I mean, it was like I was saying to you before, men will come into my clinic and they're like, oh, my blood pressure's up, or my left toe hurts or something. What do I need to do? You know, they don't accept it. Whereas women, oh my goodness, we expect period pain. We push through that. We expect childbirth to be painful. We push through that. Menopause, we're like, oh God, here we go. You know, everything, we just think we can get on with it. And whether that's a failure of medicine or whether it's us just thinking grin and bear it, just put up with it like our ancestors did.
Yeah.
I think we put up, so I don't know that we're more sensitive, but I think we put up with a hell of a lot more than men do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's partially a societal thing as well at times, very much. Is this expectation of these are the stages you go through and therefore it's normal, and therefore any form of discomfort is a normal thing. And actually, I think having more awareness, I do think women are, well, I don't know. I think people in general, actually, not just women, are becoming more aware of their bodies because, like I say, with lockdown, we had everything quite quiet.
Yes.
We had a time for everything to slow down. And, you know, some people drank a lot and they noticed the side effects of that, and other people didn't. But a lot of people actually got very, very fit, very physically fit and healthy. I mean, I was definitely one of those people. I left lockdown fitter and healthier than I'd been in years. You know, I literally was like, I kind of came out of lockdown and went, where'd you go?
Yes.
Because it was an opportunity to sit there and take stock of, you know, it's very rare that life slows down that much, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely something that lots of brands, GPs and things are kind of paying the price for actually a little bit now, is what do we do next? So, you know, we talk a lot about nutrition. We've mentioned earlier that you work with Zooki.
Yes.
Who are Zooki? Like, how's this all come about?
Zooki are interesting. I mean, I've been doing nutrition for 25 years. I've never linked with a supplement company before. Two young men founders. Marcus had a rugby injury and went to the surgeon to have, I think it was ACL or something like that in his knee. And the surgeon told him as part of the recovery, he had to take fish oils. So he started on those enormous capsules of fish oil,
I know. It's like swallowing a milk bottle.
It is. They're horrible to swallow, and also you're burping fish for the rest.
I know,
of the
it's awful.
Really unpleasant. The whole experience. So he thought, hang on, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So he spent some time. I think the first product was a fish oil water, which didn't really work, but it did show that there was a market for a better fish oil,
better way.
And then he went to the States and he looked at what is the really best way of getting vitamins, supplements, nutrients into the body. And it's all about coating them in liposomes, lipid encapsulation. Now, this was developed for medicines years ago, decades ago, a way to get a drug into the system. Basically what it is, a lot of nutrients or substances to get them into the body need something called active transport. The body effectively has to provide a taxi to get that particular nutrient across the gut wall and into the bloodstream. Now, when you take most vitamins or supplements, an hour later, you're peeing out orange.
Totally.
Yes. And you think, okay, well, that was a waste, wasn't it? Well, yes, it was. Now, the reason for that is not necessarily that your body doesn't need that supplement, doesn't need that nutrient. It's because it doesn't have enough taxis available. It doesn't have the facility to take the nutrients into the body. So an awful lot of supplements have really, really poor absorption. So he didn't want to waste his time with anything of that. He thought, okay, you know, there's $1 billion supplement industry out there, and a lot of them are complete waste of time, frankly. So he took this method of delivery and applied it to fish oils, and that was the first product. So effectively, all the Zooki products are in their own taxis. If you like, they're in their own Ubers.
It's like the vitamins and black cabs.
Exactly. That's the way I describe it to people, because it makes quite
so much
easy.
sense. Yeah.
Yes. So we've wrapped them in the lipids. That applies to all the products. You'll really notice it if you take the vitamin C.
Really?
Vitamin C, if you drink the normal sort of dissolvable ones or whatever, you will be peeing out orange.
Yeah, very
With
much so.
R1, that doesn't happen. You'll feel a lift and you won't be peeing out orange an hour later, because it's all there ready to get into the system.
Funnily enough, our head of client services, Stephen, we were having a little chat saying that you were coming in today, and obviously you'd generously let us try some products, and he said, I don't know what it is, but I definitely feel more awake.
Yeah,
he said,
yeah.
It's not quite the same kick you get from coffee, but
No,
you get a kick.
But we're getting there. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it, because it's actually showing you what can happen when you get the nutrient into the system and it works properly. So that was the first thing, was the absorption. He wanted to come up with a product that was best in show, best in market. And then he wanted to make the experience really enjoyable, because, and this is something that really resonates with me, most clients, they'll start off really keen. I'll give them a few supplements. We're going to change your diet. We're going to add this in. We're going to take this out. We're going to give you a few supplements. After a couple of months, they're like, oh, I was about to swear. No, I mustn't.
You can swear all you like.
Oh, no, can't do this. Honestly, I hate these capsules. Can't be bothered. This is just not fun. I forgot, And they go back to not taking things. They just get stuck in the drawer and forgotten. So he wanted an experience that actually was enjoyable, really nice taste, something, the little sachet, you can have it with you everywhere, in your desk, in your handbag, in your sports bag, whatever works for you, whatever time of day. So it was kind of marrying experience with efficacy.
Yeah.
Come up with something really, really good. And that's what they've done.
I mean, I think the products are really interesting. So I can't remember which one, but one of them turns it white. And I thought that I put it in water.
Yes.
So I'd mix it in with water.
Yes.
And I was like, I felt like kind of Jesus at the last dinner, where instead of water to wine, it's water to milk. And I was thinking, wow, what an amazing experience.
That would have been the vitamin C or the vitamin D, I think.
I think it's the vitamin D.
Vitamin D, there
Vitamin
you go.
D. It's a really interesting experience, because I take, as we've mentioned before, lots of different supplements, and you are absolutely spot on. It's a real commitment. You kind of feel like you're rattling. And it's sometimes, if you take too many, it's uncomfortable.
Nauseous, yeah.
You do, because your
Exactly.
stomach's going, what have you just put in here?
Yes.
And it is a lot. It is a big commitment. So to be able to be in a position where you kind of go, oh, do you know, I haven't got time today, throw a little sachet in your bag, either put it in water, if you drink
That's
other
what
things.
I do. I put them in my water bottle, so it's just there and I'm sipping it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mix it in with my kind of greens shake that I have in the morning, or smoothie or whatever. And there's so many different ways. And even with children, it actually can become a bit more playful, because it is very kind of rich and kind of not syrup-like, but it's quite thick.
Yes.
So you definitely feel like you're eating something. It's quite, I think someone compared it to like the Froob experience.
That's exactly right. Well, a lot of my clients, they use them as snacks, or not either snacks, or they're instead of a dessert. Yes, or they'll have it. When you want something sweet, exactly, after your lunch or whatever. For me, like a little piece of dark chocolate, or I've got to have a little piece after dinner. I've got to have a little piece of dark chocolate. Just got to. So having that instead, and you're doing something good, and also it is slightly sweet, so it gives you that feeling of you've given yourself a treat.
Absolutely. So obviously, you started working kind of with Zooki. You talk a lot about kind of nutrition and the kind of poor, and then also the good bioavailability within that.
Yeah.
What does that, like, how do people know what they're getting? So obviously with Zooki, there's lots of different products. There's stuff for kind of menopause, there's collagen ones, there's, I think I remember there's, I don't know whether I say it right, turmeric,
Turmeric. However you like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's very much something that people are talking about a lot at the moment, and there's a lot of kind of new products coming into the market where that's a big thing. I know CMOS is a product that's very much coming into the market, and people are talking about as well. So how do people kind of work out
I know
what they
it's
need?
so hard on your own. There are some basics, vitamin D and fish oils. Even the GPs will tell you actually everybody needs those. But I sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet here. Honestly, what you need to do at some point is go to a nutritionist, have some tests done, and work out what you need. Because age and stage, what you need at 30 years old, heavy periods, vegan diet, whatever is your lifestyle and stage, is going to be completely different to when you're 50 or 60, menopausal, diets changed, not producing as many digestive enzymes. It changes radically throughout our life. So it's almost like going for a health check or
like an MOT.
An MOT, exactly. It is just worth going, getting a couple of tests, seeing what your levels are, what's going on. And then if you get the right person, work out what you can do with your lifestyle. I had a lovely client yesterday. He's got a lot of gut problems, and we were talking about, okay, you need to take these sort of antimicrobials, this and that, but he's working full time. He lives on his own. He doesn't know how to cook, whatever. So then we came down to, okay, we're going to get a meal delivery system. You are going to take some antibiotics because you've got all sorts of things going on in your gut. And it would take us months with antimicrobials and things, herbals. So actually, we're going to do something a bit faster. Then we'll come back to, you've got to work around people's lifestyles as well.
Yeah.
So getting that MOT, finding what you need personally, I think is crucial.
It's really interesting, I think, because just thinking back on my own personal journey, I've never actually said I should probably go see a nutritionalist. I've just kind of tried to work it out on my own because it is really overwhelming, and the market has exploded. Like you mentioned, it's probably more than £1 billion kind of market now. It's just, when you look at, I think the supplements market's predicted to grow by like 200% in the next 7 years. There's constantly new products coming out. I have people, I'm going to release this vegan collagen and all this and that. And it's, as a consumer, it's overwhelming to know which one you should take and why. Like look at just collagen for an example. Like that one little section is huge.
It really is.
There's powders, there's tablets, there's liquids, there's I think there's cakes you can eat now with it in. And it's kind of, is it animal proteins? Is it marine collagen? Is it plant-based? And actually, it's a bit like with HRT and menopause. And I was trying to, like I said to you earlier, having this conversation with my mum.
Yep.
One is putting something back in.
Yep.
With HRT. And kind of a natural supplement version is actually trying to trigger your body's own processes for producing it. So they're actually very different things.
Yes.
But the way in which sometimes the market communicates, you wouldn't necessarily know that.
I know. Well, collagen's a really interesting one. I love it. Collagen is unbelievably important to the body. It's the most abundant protein in the body from the age of about 25, 30 years old.
I know, it's very depressing.
I know. It's so young, isn't it?
Too soon.
We start producing less and less. So we lose the ability to produce it at about 1% a year. Then, during menopause, as if we didn't have enough problems, that's production really falls off a cliff. So by the time you're about 60 years old, you're actually trying to fuel your body with about a third of the collagen production that you had when you were 25. Now, it's not just skin. Obviously, the beauty industry markets it as skin, hair, nails.
Ligaments,
It's ligaments, it's tendons, it's bones, it's absolutely everything. There is a reason why 50-something women have far more Achilles tendons, knee, shoulder, hip injuries because as estrogen falls, that's when the collagen production goes, etc. So we really lose that. Taking collagen, again, it's fascinating because it's the one nutrient that when you take it actually stimulates the body to produce it itself if you take it with vitamin C. So no other nutrient does that. We're either just replacing or replenishing.
Why do you have to take it with vitamin C?
Because it's the vitamin C plus the collagen that pushes the body to start producing it again.
Okay.
For some reason.
A lot of products don't have vitamin C within it.
They don't. So they're still giving you collagen, but they're not giving you that extra kick.
It's that taxi.
Exactly. Yes, it's my taxi again. They're not giving you that extra kick of getting the body to stimulate its own production. So taking it with vitamin C is that much more powerful. Marine collagen is almost all type 1, which is in the skin and the hair. It's slightly easier absorbed. It also, very important, needs to be hydrolyzed. Collagen's an enormous molecule. It cannot go in topically, as you probably know. We just can't get it through the skin, the pores of the skin. But if you take it internally, it needs to have been broken down, hydrolyzed. It's all about the kilodaltons, size, kilodaltons matters.
So many words I need to go and Google.
Yes, exactly.
Size does matter when it comes to nutrition.
So when you take a protein powder or something, it's about 70 kilodaltons in size. You can't absorb it that much. But if you take a hydrolyzed collagen that's really been broken down into tiny, tiny peptides, then your body can absorb it. So the kilodaltons matter. Bovine collagen contains more types of collagen, but a lot of people don't tolerate that as well or don't want to take the bovine collagen. Vegan collagen is a bit of a misnomer. There's actually no such thing at the moment. They are working on it. They are trying to combine the peptides from plant sources that would make up the animal peptide. You can get eggshell collagen. if you're vegetarian. But the vegan collagens, they are sort of collagen-like
Again,
supplements.
So that's what I mean. It's about kind of trying to trigger a thing rather than putting it back in. And that's where, as a consumer, it's really hard because no one's actually talking about that in this detail. And I think if you did, it would really empower you to make decisions. So, I mean, collagen, what's the best type then to help come back in?
I would recommend a marine collagen is the easiest absorbed. So of hydrolyzed, low molecular weight marine collagen with vitamin C would be the way to start.
And is it type 1 and type 3?
Yeah, exactly. And then, you might try bovine as well, but I would recommend a marine as more acceptable to everybody.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, I mean, there's so many different things with this. And do you know what? So it comes back to, again, that mental health piece. So it's not just about gut in this instance. So you've just said, right, too big. There's a certain size when it comes to collagen. So it's got to be kind of allowing you, it's got to be broken down to support that taxi element so that your body can process it in the right way. It then has to be absorbed with vitamin C to help trigger your own body's natural production process. But on top of that, as you've just said, you're working with a third, when you get kind of to the later stages in life, you're working with a third less than you had before. Everything's aching. That's also going to have an impact on your mental health. So it's not just about saying, your hormones are making you sad. It's that you're effectively living in a home. Your body is your home. Yes. You're living in a home that's not falling apart. That's not the right way to say it.
It's slowing down. If things become harder, digestive enzymes is another one. Past the age of 40, our production of digestive enzymes actually decreases as well.
Really?
So you could be eating the best diet. You could be living on a farm with totally natural, organic, lovely, seasonal, local products. But if you're not producing the digestive enzymes that breaks them down to get them into the body, then you're not going to get the full benefits of that. So that's another thing, getting people over the age of 40 to have a digestive enzyme when they eat.
Oh, right. So that's how you'd fix it.
Just to supplement it, just to make sure that you are getting the most nutrients out of your diet and not wasting your time.
And we spoke about this earlier as well. So the category, the wellness category, the supplements category, the growth is huge.
Yes.
And it's still, as I said, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are new brands coming in every single day with something different. As I mentioned, CMOS is now starting to be elevated a bit more. And they're saying it's got all these vitamins and they're all minerals.
And things,
it's really hard to differentiate between should that be my focus or should my diet be my focus? Because a supplement fundamentally is what it says on the tin.
A supplement.
It's a supplement. And actually a lot of consumers see supplements as these magic silver bullets. Yeah. And they're not.
No, they're not. They can make a huge difference, but you're absolutely right. Diet should be number one. The whole point of nutrition, you have to remember, all we are is a bunch of cells, okay? They are continually replacing, remaking, repairing themselves 24 hours a day. Now, to do that, if you think about it, if you want to make a new skin cell, you need to access vitamin C, proteins, amino acids, all sorts of things, essential fatty acids. There's no magic store in the body. There's no Deliveroo, Amazon warehouse, whatever. I know, wouldn't it be? The only place you get the nutrients to make new cells for your body is through what you eat and drink. So, Hannah, if we were to sit here in a year's time, 365 days, over 95% of your body will be completely new.
Wow.
Okay? Over 95% of your body will have been replaced in that year. So if you think about it, it's so important. You've got to make a new skin cell, like you were saying. Okay, brain to liver. I'm simplifying here. Yeah. I need some new skin cells. Right. Well, she's been out at Christmas parties for the last week. She's been on the lash for the last week. So she hasn't really been eating. She's had a lot of coffees and a couple of glasses of Chardonnay and a pizza in the evening. Oh, she did have a lettuce. She did have a salad the other day. I've got some vitamin C. I haven't got much protein in here. I can make you a skin cell, but it's not going to be very good. Do you see what I'm getting at? When going back to the you are what you eat. What you eat and drink is going to be what your body relies on tomorrow to make the new cells that are needed. And that's not just the physical body, it is the mental body as well. It takes over 50 different nutrients to have a happy thought. Don't ask me why, but it takes more nutrients to be happy than sad, which is kind of interesting from an evolutionary point of view.
It takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile.
Yeah, okay, so, I like that.
There we go.
Yes.
It's working too hard.
Exactly.
That's why I smile all the time. I'm lazy.
Yes.
My face is lazy.
I love that. My face is working very hard. Anyway, but the point is to be happy, you've got to fuel yourself properly. And I think, like you said earlier, when you've had a bad week and you haven't been eating well, you just feel down. You know it. Your energy goes, you feel lethargic.
And you don't sleep as well?
You don't sleep as well. Everything comes down to it. So we have to work at being happy. You have to make sure that you're feeding yourself properly. That should be your number one. On top of that, boost it up with supplements as and when you need them. Some of them I think are pretty much essential all year round. Some of the basics. Some of them will be just from time to time. Maybe iron at a certain point in your life, if you've got heavy periods or pregnancy. Folic acid, unbelievably essential when you're pregnant. There are ones that are essential different times of life. But you're right, it should be supplements. Diet has to be number one.
And with the diet side, so I heard you were talking about fiber earlier. That for me was, as soon as I kind of got my head around fiber, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
Because processed foods, fiber, what's that?
Yeah.
It's just, it always comes from the natural foods. And you don't have to shop organic to benefit in that way.
Yes.
But it's, what are the basics when it comes to what you should be thinking about for your diet before you then start going, hang on a minute, I'm doing all these basics. These are the things I'm doing. I'm prioritizing kind of 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I'm drinking X amount of liters a day. I'm getting my exercise. I'm doing all the good things that I need to do. And it's still not working. But what are those basics that need to happen before you should then say, maybe I should go see a nutritionist?
Okay. Well, you mentioned water in passing there. Hydration is always my number one. I often spend a lot of...
Look at the size of this bottle.
Enormous.
2 litres. Everyone goes, that's massive. I go, I drink 2 a day.
Well done.
It never leaves my side.
Doesn't it make a difference when you started doing that?
I've always been a big water lover.
Yes.
Very lucky. My sister, however, is like, bleh, hate it. But I can drink any kind. It changes my personality, but not only that, my performance in work. I can think faster. If I'm sat there and I'm sluggish and someone's talking to me and I'm like, I haven't drunk enough.
Yes.
It's my default.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting. There are studies on that. Even a 4% drop in hydration can cause up to a 10% drop in performance, mental and physical. Sports physiologists will tell you that, and they know how important it is for athletes, but we need to know that in daily life. So water is my number one. When clients come to see me, often the first 1 or 2 weeks, I'm like, right, drink some water. Getting them over just even 1 glass a day or something can be absolutely huge. You need water as a catalyst for every single chemical reaction in the body, every single one. So when you're dehydrated, everything slows down. So that is number one, is hydration. Then I think about colour. And think about the vegetables on your plate. Most of us, when we think of a meal, we think of the protein first. I'm going to have beef, I'm going to have salmon, I'm going to have whatever, chicken, whatever. And then the vegetables become sort of the side issue.
So the garnish.
Yes. I get people to think about it the other way around. Yes. I want your plate 2/3 full of lovely, colourful, different types of vegetables, starchy, non-starchy. I don't care how you cook them as long as you don't deep fry, only occasionally. You can have them raw, steamed, whatever. Loads of different vegetables. Think colour. Then the protein becomes almost the garnish, if you like. And now that is important. And I want, especially women, again, we tend to eat less protein as we age, and actually we need it. So I do want a good source of protein at every meal. It slows down the sugar release. It keeps the balance. And then the third one is the essential fats. So that's your avocado or your olive oil, your oily fish, coconut, things like that, nuts and seeds. They're called essential because the body can't make them. So we actually need to take them in every day. And then on top of that, herbs and spices. They are nature's medicine cabinet.
Really?
So as many different herbs and spices as you can get in. I set them a challenge. We start with sort of 20 different herbs, spices, vegetables, fruits a week. And then we go up to 30 or 40 just to get that variety in. And I know it's difficult if you're living on your own. You can't get sort of small packets of things. So then you've got to use your freezer, make something, freeze it, whatever. But think variety, think colour. You spoke about fibre. Unbelievably important to keep the system going. And this has been a big casualty of the whole keto movement.
Totally.
There is a place for keto. There's a lot of science behind it. It works for certain people, certain conditions, whatever. But when you cut out the fibre, everything slows down. The bacteria, the microbiome suffers. So even when people are kind of trying to lose weight or going keto, I really insist on one starchy vegetable a day, one serving of sweet potato, parsnips, brown rice, butternut squash, something that's going to give your microbiome something to munch on.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's amazing. And I think that's definitely one of the biggest things. This has been fascinating, but I think there's so many things we could talk about. But why do you think, and it's just more your personal opinion, you know, you spoke to so many different academics, doctors, whatever, about these kind of different categories. Why do you think consumers are more aware of it now? What's been the shift?
I think the shift has been that actually we have been failed a lot by Western medicine. There isn't anyone, you know, you go along and you start on one pill, then it's two, then it's three, statins, blood pressure. You know, I mean, there's this whole sort of rhetoric about you get to 50, oh, now you got to go on your statins and your blood pressure. No, absolutely not. I think education is a big part of it. There is a big gap between the educated public and people who don't know as much about it. And there are a lot of sort of hardworking families out there who no longer sit around the dining table I work with a school in Westminster where the kids, a lot of the girls come in with a 2-litre bottle of Diet Coke. That's their lunch. They haven't had breakfast.
Lord.
They've got Diet Coke for lunch. They won't have a family meal in the evening because their parents are working 2 shifts or something. You know, they go back and it might be a packet of something or whatever. So, you know, saying that the public are more educated, I think we've got to qualify that. Certain sections of the public are a lot more educated and aware now.
Totally.
But there is an awful lot of the public who really haven't got a clue because they just haven't been told. They walk into a supermarket where there's aisles and aisles of products that should not be marketed as food because they are not, but they're cheap and that's what they're living off. So, yeah, a lot of people are more educated and more aware, but we've also got to reach a lot of people who aren't, I think.
Do you think, I mean, I have this discussion a lot. So I've got a 5-year-old who's just kind of entered the education system year 1. And you kind of go through the whole, this is what we're going to teach them and this is what we're going to do. And one of the things that I noticed straight away, and this isn't a reflection on his school because actually he's in a very wonderful school, he's very lucky, but is the lack of education around food.
Yes.
So he does come home and I, again, because I'm very much about food, he eats lots of different types of fruits and vegetables and we kind of try and make it fun and playful and this is the rainbow food and what colour's this, and finding the ways to kind of, again, make food a game and educate yourself and push you to try more things because kids are fussy, as we know.
Yep.
But schools, no matter what stage of life, they don't see. I've never used the pie equation since I left.
I know,
so why don't you teach me about real pie?
Yeah.
Yes. There's definitely something at a much bigger level where we have a responsibility to help people really understand how to live, because we are living longer.
Yeah.
You know, we're living longer lives. You know, just all of the different things. We actually met with someone on a podcast that's coming out tomorrow, actually, where she was talking about her own experiences in the supplements world and how physically we're about 10 years more aged than we were from our previous generation because our cells are just not firing because life is more stressful.
Yes.
You know, life is faster. It is more stressful. Like you mentioned, people are having to do more things because of cost of living. And you could sit there and talk about all the different reasons for it. But we don't educate people enough just at a core basic level.
Do you know what? I have 2 dreams. If I could be Prime Minister tomorrow, if they got rid of Rishi Sunak and put me in number 10, I'd do 2 things. One, I would I would teach every child in the country to cook. We got rid of home economics, I don't know, back in the 80s, 90s. And, you know, it was a bit rubbish. We learned how to cook pineapple upside down cakes and stupid stuff, but at least we weren't scared of the kitchen. I would teach every child in the country to cook. It breaks my heart when children go through years of pretty poor diet. Then they go to university. They haven't got a clue what to do. They live off pasta, beer, yeah, that's it. And then their mental health goes because they haven't had a vegetable in weeks. They haven't seen the sunlight. They don't know what they're doing, and they really struggle. I would teach every child. I teach every child how to make a vegetable, how to cook, and just look after themselves. And the second thing I would do is, instead of GP surgeries, we'd have health hubs. You would have a physio, a PT, a nutritionist, everything you need there to actually, so when you go to the surgery and say, here's my problem, they're like, okay, right, you're going to go and see an exercise person, you're going to see a nutritionist, you're going to see a massage, whatever it is you need, sleep specialist, and we're going to get you to sort yourself out by yourself without needing our drugs and everything else. But I think it's so important what you've just said, teaching children. And the more you engage your son, make it fun. Let him choose a meal. Okay, what do you want to eat this week? What do you choose on Wednesday? And you're going to cook it. You're going to help him, obviously.
No, he does. He's my sous chef.
I love that. Yep. It is so important. All my kids, I made them do cookery courses, which actually they loved, and it has set them up for life.
I bet.
So just having that skill, it's so important. It's not, it's there for their health more than anything else.
But it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the Western world, because actually outside of the Western world, that does happen.
Yeah.
And it does happen. It's a big part of it. I've spoken to so many different peoples from different backgrounds, and it's, even men. Yes. My mum taught me how to cook.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, I know how to cook. I know how to do this. And it's the variety. And again, that herbs and the spices and the different kind of ways of working with food. It's there.
Yeah.
It's just, for some reason, the westernized world, because we've made it too easy to be lazy.
Well, we have. I mean, look at breakfast. Okay, Britain, America, Canada. What do we think of as breakfast? A packaged cereal, bread with jam, something like that. Any other country, you've got meat, fish, eggs. I was in Vietnam, fruit. Vietnam, they do this lovely beef soup or whatever.
Breakfast?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Wow.
Fantastic. They get up, they work a bit first, and then they have breakfast, and it'll be like a beef pho or something like that. And make a proper meal. It's only us. We have been brainwashed since the 1950s to think that a packet of Cheerios is a nutritious breakfast. How they got Nutella advertising it recently as a healthy breakfast. I mean...
we don't have Nutella in our house because I'm like, there's just calories in a box.
So just start with breakfast. We've got it so completely wrong. The food industry has brainwashed us into thinking that is a healthy way to start the day. No, it is not. In my house, I let them have cereal when they came home from school, 4 o'clock or something. They could have a bowl of cereal as a bit of fun or as a pudding. But breakfast, no, that was a proper meal. That was eggs. It was something proper. Or, a smoothie if we didn't have a lot of time, but with some protein in there. That was a proper meal. You've got to set them up for the day. So, it's that education and it's the influence of the food industries that here, particularly Western Europe and the Americas, we've gone so far away from what's good for us.
I know, it's insane. I mean, so I've got 2 more questions because I genuinely have loved this so much. Thank you so much. Firstly, where do you see the supplements category going next? Or just the nutrition? Where do we need to go next? Or where are we going next?
Well, I think people are becoming far more aware and far more educated. So you can't just walk into a cheap store and buy a cheap supplement and expect it to work for you. You have got to pay a bit more for what's good for you. So I think 2 things. I think, yes, we're going to get better delivery systems. People are going to realise that there is a lot of rubbish out there and that they need to sort through the wheat to get to the good stuff. And the second thing is I think we're going to see more personalised ones, especially in the probiotics, because the more we're learning about the microbiome and the specific strains of bacteria, the more we're finding out there are certain bacteria that affect mental health. They've done a lot of this work on mice and things where they have transported, they'll breed mice that are timid, they'll breed mice that are aggressive. They switch the microbiome. They take out the bacteria, they give them antibiotics to make them completely sterile, and then they switch the bacteria and the mice then change characteristics. They've done the same. They've done, I hate to talk about fecal transplants, but they've done some work in Canada where they've had family relations, overweight and slim, and they've done fecal transplants between the two, and their weight starts to change.
Hold on a minute, just so I understand. As in poo?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, don't say. Hold on.
I always end up talking about...
They swap poo?
They basically swap. It's called a fecal transplant. They take out... they use stool samples. They use stool samples. They dehydrate them, kind of, condense them down until it becomes a pill.
Right.
I know. You're swallowing poo. Down it goes, and it repopulates your gut with the bacteria of the other person, and your characteristics actually change.
Whoa.
I know. So
don't go eating skinny people's poo, guys.
No,
don't
do
do that.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But I can see a world, we're not there yet, 20, 30 years time, where they'll say, okay, they'll analyze your microbiome and they'll go, right, you need this strain, that strain, the other strain, and here's your poo pill.
Oh my Lord.
Your probiotic. Let's call it a probiotic pill. And off you go.
Wow.
So I think it's going to become more knowledgeable, and I think it's going to become more personalized.
Wow. That is amazing. Blown my mind now. Never going to look at poo the same.
I know.
So we have one question. I have loved this. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have one final question that we ask every single guest on this show, which is, we have a lot of marketeers in particular, so people that are actually controlling the communication that's going to these end customers and consumers that we're talking about. Based on what we've spoke about today, which has been a lot, apart from the first one, which is don't eat poo.
Yes.
What one piece of advice would you give to them?
To the marketers or to...
Anyone. They're consumers. What one piece of advice around all of the things we've spoke about today?
I would say don't underestimate what you can do yourself, really, when you start to, like you did during lockdown. I love that. You took a moment to reflect and think, what do I want to change? How can I do this myself? I absolutely love that. So important for you and your son. Just realize that what we do day to day, and it's not just food, it's exercise, it's sunlight, it's fresh air, it's a bit of meditation, it's sleep, all that. You can completely change your health. Never, ever give up. Never think it's too bad. And realize that you are your most powerful friend.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Honestly, it has been an absolute joy.
Likewise, I've loved it.
You. Yes, I could chew your ears off for hours, but I won't. But thank you so much again, guys. Obviously, if you have any questions at all, please do get in touch at... oh my gosh, I've forgotten it now. podcast@thepullagency.co.uk. And yes, we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Take care.